Welcome back. Let's take you to some of our international news now. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to resign as Conservative Party leader today. That's according to the BBC. It's reporting he will step down as Prime Minister in the autumn to allow a leadership battle to be concluded. This comes after Brandon Lewis became the latest cabinet minister to resign. He is stepping down as Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. For the latest now, we're joined by our UK correspondent Ollie Barrett to give us more details. Ollie, just to explain to myself and the viewers, a South African government system works differently. So just explain to us what it means when the BBC, first of all, says he will be resigning as Conservative Party leader, but not as Prime Minister yet.
Right, so Boris Johnson is going to step aside as the leader of the Conservative Party later. We know that that is going to happen. We're hearing it from sources inside Downing Street. Once he does that, there will be a leadership challenge, a leadership race in the Conservative Party, to pick who's going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party, and that person would then become the next Prime Minister as well. The question really is whether Boris Johnson remains as caretaker Prime Minister in the intervening period or whether that role is handed over to someone else. One of the reasons we haven't heard from Boris Johnson yet is that we expect that he wants to stay on in that caretaker role for the next few weeks or months while the next leader of the Conservative Party is chosen. But there are quite a lot of Conservative MPs who are so angry with Boris Johnson as their leader that they want him gone now. And so clearly all of that's being decided behind the scenes. Boris Johnson's working out what he wants to say on the steps of Downing Street, and senior Conservative Party officials are probably telling him whether what he wants to say is acceptable to them.
There's a minister also that he literally appointed about 2 or 3 days ago. What happens with that minister's appointment now, after Johnson actually steps aside?
It's an open question, which we don't have an answer to yet. You're referencing Nadhim Zahawi, who was made Chancellor of the Exchequer just 24 hours or so ago, one of the top offices of state in the land. And then around 24 hours later, he himself was calling for the Prime Minister to step aside. Well, he remains in post as far as we understand. There's also, though, an open question about all of the currently unfilled ministerial positions in cabinet and also in lower ranks of government. Over 50 Conservative MPs resigned from Boris Johnson's government. So those posts, the majority of them, remain unfilled. In fact, as we speak, there is a debate going on in the House of Commons, and the Labour Party is saying there is no functioning government. What is going to happen next? And the Conservative minister who's on his feet in the Commons is saying that the business of government will continue, don't worry, we'll fill all those posts. But we don't know what happens to those ministers who resigned in the last 24 hours or so, and whether they will just come straight back into their positions, or whether, if Boris Johnson remains as caretaker, whether he'll try and put other people into those positions. All of these things are uncertain at this point, and that's why the Labour Party, the opposition, is hammering this idea so much that there isn't a stable government at the moment, and they point the finger of blame for that firmly at Boris Johnson, but they also want the finger of blame more broadly to go at the Conservative Party that they're up against.
Has there been any talks, Ollie, in terms of names probably that are just flying around to step in once Johnson has stepped out?
Well, you say flying around, and that's an interesting choice of words, because Liz Truss, the current Foreign Secretary, is in the G20 Indonesia meeting, and we're told she's flying home. And part of the reason that she would be doing that is because she absolutely is considered a front-runner to take over from Boris Johnson. We also know that Nadhim Zahawi, who we mentioned earlier, who's just taken over as Chancellor, would quite like a go at the top job. Rishi Sunak, who resigned as Chancellor earlier in the week, has long been considered a front runner, although had some difficulties recently with his family's financial affairs. Sajid Javid, who stepped down as Health Secretary this week, he could well be a front runner. And this is actually one of the difficulties for the Conservative Party. There are quite a few names in the frame, and if they do all go ahead as expected and put their names forward, then it could be quite a complicated leadership contest, which could last many weeks, if not months. And quite a lot of Conservative MPs would like to avoid that because they want a leader in place as quickly as possible so that they can provide what they would see as stable leadership to the country at an incredibly difficult time. There's a war in Europe, there's a cost of living crisis unfolding. It's not a great time to be without a government that's functioning properly.
All right. Thank you very much, Ollie Barrett. It's going to be quite an interesting few weeks in the UK. That was our UK correspondent, Ollie Barrett, speaking to us from London.